strong enough to cheat final death and see another night? Back Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expandable card game today.
Welcome everyone to Vampire Wednesdays. We're so excited. We're almost at the end of our Kickstarter. And so we have some fun stuff we want to talk to you about and share with you this evening. So we're going to get started. My name is Sarah Erickson. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Renegade Game Studios. And I'm joined with me this evening with Matt Hyra. How's it going, Matt?
It's going pretty well. It's hot in Southern
Excellent.
California, but it's okay.
Yeah, we're ready for nighttime. At least I am.
Yeah.
Cool off a little bit. So Matt and I are going to be chatting about some of the special cards that we haven't talked a lot about yet. But before we get into that, we have another special guest on our show this evening that we haven't really talked too much yet. But she's a very important part of our team, and she has been working hard behind the scenes to make sure that when everyone gets their games in December, that you'll also have the ability to run events, to sign up on our website and host events, to do achievements, and to make sure that your online profile shows you all sorts of fun stuff. So I really wanted to bring her in today and chat with her about everything she's been working on. So let's invite Terry Latorco, our Senior Marketing Manager, to come and join us.
Hello, everyone. Hello, family. I'm hanging out in my royal retreat here in San Francisco. Yeah, California's so hot. Oh my goodness.
How's it going, Terry?
Good. It's good. We're working on some really exciting stuff. I'm really psyched about starting to roll this out. We're going to be rolling out some really exciting features to support our community. I've been talking about it a little bit in the Kickstarter comments, a little bit in our Discord. So if you've been seeing from me, hello, I'm Renegade Terry out on our Discord and on our forums at vampirerivals.com. I'm just Terry, that Terry girl in the Kickstarter comments there. And yeah, we can talk a little bit about some of the new features. I think that they tie into a lot of the stuff you've been working on, Sarah, and I think that folks who've been talking a lot with Matt in our community sections will be really excited about these features as well. So if you're a backer, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit of context. So we are really trying to create a full organized play program for a full expandable card game. So that means that we want to support tournament play, we want to support a community, we want to give you lots of things that you can interact with in addition to just playing this fantastic card game. So that's kind of where we decided we really need to build a full website for this, because just having you play at your local game store is great, but your local game store needs some way to track things, to create events in a system. And it gives us an idea of where our communities are and gives us a better chance to support them. So that's why we really wanted to get Terry involved, because Terry actually has a ton of organized play experience, and she has been running events for a very long time in the miniature wargaming world. So Terry, just give us a little short background about your past experience.
So I used to be a competitive player as a miniature wargamer, and then I moved over to running events in that space. And so it meant that you had to try to let people know, hey, we're doing stuff for your game, and tracking them down, collecting their information, and there's a lot of challenges with that. I'm hoping that we can address that.
I think the Brewhawk cut the power to the Royal Retreat.
Oh, no. That was a sneaky move. Well,
We'll
okay, so
get her
Terry is
back.
having some technical difficulties. I'm sure she'll
Oh.
join back in a second.
Already back.
Hello.
Did we get her back? Okay, okay.
Did you fight off the attack?
There, you never know what kind of dangers lurk at night in the streets of San Francisco, even a royal retreat. My secrecy wasn't high enough. I'm sorry, guys.
You've been pretty secret throughout most of this campaign, and you finally come out into the streets, and this is what happened.
This is what happens. So, talking a little bit about my background, like I've organized events. I've gone through that process of trying to let people know, hey, we're having an event here. I want to support this community, connect with them. From an event organizer standpoint, like that's a challenge. And so I want to be able to, with our website, help organizers let people know who are interested, who want to come, who are always looking for those that things are happening in their area. So that's one of the things.
And one point I wanted to make about that is that we love friendly local game stores, but we understand that players don't necessarily have a friendly local game store in their town. There are a lot of really big wide open spaces in the world in general, and we want to support any community that wants to play this game. So we will have things for regular bigger communities, whether those are in an actual organized play store or whether those are groups of players that are meeting at some public space like a library or something like that. And so we'll have some special events in the future that are just for those bigger tournament organizers, but even at a very small local level, meaning on your kitchen table, you can still be an event organizer. If you're organizing an event for your 3 friends that are in your bubble, or maybe for just your family, that still counts. And we want to give you the tools to make that successful. So that should be fun. So yeah, Terry, so we talked a little bit about why it's important to have a website. So tell us about a couple of the features that you're most excited about that you're building. We might be having some more technical difficulties. It's not my fault. I do really like Malkavian, but this is not a conspiracy or a scheme. I'm just going to put that out there right now.
We can't hear you.
No, I still can't
Sorry.
hear you. So
Can you hear me now?
Oh, she's working. Yep.
Oh,
Go for it.
Could you say that again, Sarah?
Yeah, no problem. So what are some of the features that you're building out on the website that will really give these organizers the tools they need to run successful events in their communities?
So the first thing with the event functionality, we're going to have the ability to like let fans know, hey, an event is happening near you. And so whether you're a player somewhere, you can get notified because when you sign up for an account on vampirerivals.com, you'll get access to the forums and you'll be able to use the other functionality that's there. But one of the other benefits is because there's information about your location, if you want to know if events are being organized near you, we can notify you of those things. It also lets event organizers know when people are signing up. Like they can let you know through our event functionality that, hey, there's probably gonna be about this many people, which is a big thing, especially if you're say a Methuselah level backer. You've got all this awesome stuff to run an event, you're feeling safe. This is a time for you to do something and find people to play with. But your kit doesn't necessarily support 30 people. Being able to fix the number of people and know that they're coming and connect with them if you need to through the messaging system on vampirerivals.com will help you out with that as well. So there's that fundamental functionality in terms of events, and you can build your own calendar as a player, help set a schedule for yourself, like, oh, I know these people are running an event here, it's nearby, and know, hey, my calendar is kind of happy for the next so many days of vampires. So you can fill yourself out.
So another thing I'm really excited about that's a feature on the site we're working on, and I'm going to rope Matt into this one too, is building a list of achievements. And so what that means is that these are things that you can work towards either in the game. These might be things that Matt has put out there and said, hey, who's able to be a Brewhaw winner. Like if you can win a game at playing the Brewhaw clan, then you'll get an achievement for that. So we're making a whole list of things, and Matt's helping me with this. And it's not necessarily you have to win the game every time. Maybe it's just play with X number of this type of character in your deck, or maybe defeat this many mortals in the street during a game. So there's lots of different things that we're going to be putting together that will allow you to have a goal to work towards in the game, even if you're playing just 1v1, or maybe you're playing in a 30-person tournament. You still have things that you can be working towards achieving. And when you do that, there will be a reason to report that in the website. So Terry, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in terms of reporting, we've got some functions that we're gonna build in to let someone validate. Hey, yeah, I played that person. They totally earned that achievement. Or you can report it yourself, and we can validate with your organizer. Just someone to let us know. And then what you'll get from that is an achievement badge. Now, we've been working on this badge system for a while, and I'm really excited about it. We mentioned it in a previous update on the Kickstarter, where we'll be giving our backers badges to let folks know that they were a founding member of our community. They backed the Kickstarter, along with on the Discord side of our community, a special role that also notes that you were a founding member and helped build our community from the start. And so these badges will be able to display in forum posts just under your profile picture. So when you post it up, you can select a number of badges that will display with your profile photo, and so people can know all the cool things you do. And when you head over to someone's profile page, you can check out the profile page and see all of the achievements they've kind of chased down. It's a really fun thing when it comes to like interacting with people, because then you can see, hey, they did this really cool thing. That seemed interesting. How'd you get that done? And it's a great way to find other connections. I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great community kind of building tool to connect with other people and see what they're up to.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. And also, I saw a comment in the chat from Keen of Odonata. Good to see you again. And also, you mentioned that it's fun to track clans and have clan events. We're definitely thinking along the same track. So I think you'll be happy, and we'll definitely have a way to report which clans you're playing, because that's really useful information for Matt designing, but it's also just fun. Like, we can use that for future events. We can use that for other things we have planned that we're not ready to talk about. But yeah, we'll definitely be thinking along those lines as you're reporting your events. So I think that's going to be extra fun. Any other questions for Terry? She is only here for just a little bit of our show, and then we're going to actually do some deep dive into some particular cards that we wanted to show off this evening, just to give you guys another sneak preview of what's coming up. But if you have any other questions about organized play in general, or the website specifically and what to expect there, please put that in chat. And Terry, if you're not around by the time we get those questions, I can jump in and try and answer as well.
And if you're watching after the chat, I'm in the forums. You can send me a message, say hi, and ask questions there too, because we are always listening. I think that's one of the things that we really value as a company is having a community that we can hear. And it's important to us that who you can just like say, hey, I have an idea, and as you play, maybe there's something that's just like, oh, this is really cool. I'd love to see an achievement for this. And we can throw it at Matt and say, what do you think, Matt? And that'll be really fun. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to have fun with the game on the achievement side as well.
Oh yeah.
So I did see a good question in chat about, do the top X players get something at a big major event? So one thing I do want to put out there right at the beginning is we are planning big major events. I have lots of documents that I've already written up. I have all sorts of plans. I even know what materials I want to make for it. All of this stuff ready to go. But we're going to wait until it's safe to do so. So we're not going to announce the particulars of the big tournament programs until we're a little bit closer to when those make sense to actually run, because we do want to make sure everybody is still safe. So hold tight. We do have some cool stuff planned for that. No worries. And then we saw another website question. So Keen of Odenai again is asking about when the deck builder part functionality of the site is going live. Do you have a good answer for that, Terry? I know you're working hard on it.
We're targeting to have the deck builder stuff available just a little bit before everyone gets their decks. That way you can kind of start looking at the cards, having conversations about them. Theory crafting is a really fun part of gaming as a whole, like even especially now, right, where if it's not necessarily the right time to have like to come and play games, just talking shop is really fun. And so we want to be able to let you like loose and build decks and talk about them and have that kind of leading up a little bit closer to the to when you get the decks as well. And we are also planning in terms of like Vampire Wednesdays, when we start playing with more custom decks, and you can see that we want to be able to point to our site and you can actually look at the deck lists that we're playing on our streams as you're seeing them evolve, because that's really important to us too, so you can see how those particular decks are playing, and then that can help inform how your decks are built when you have your game.
Definitely. Another good OP question, wondering when we're going to launch the OP program. And it's really kind of starting as soon as the website gets ready to start accepting events. But really, it's going to launch when you get your Kickstarter materials. And it's important to note that every backer that backs at the Methuselah level will get an organized play kit. And that kit is ready with all the instructions on where to go to register your event, how to run your event, how to give out the prizes. It comes with prizes for 12 people, so you could run a couple events if you wanted to. And then also a playmat if you want to run a little tournament and see who wins. So there's a nice incentive to have people join you safely, of course, and play in an event. And honestly, if you're not comfortable running an event yet, you want to get to know the rules better, or it's just not safe in your area yet, then save that kit. You don't have to use it right away. But we wanted every one of our founding backers to be able to host an event easily with no barriers as soon as they get their kit. And we want you to start playing right away. So immediately when you get your stuff, which should be very, very soon. But that's just really step one. Like after you get that kit and you start playing, then we're going to have more themes on Vampire Wednesdays that connect with your community, that allow you to play in slightly different ways, or to learn the game, to learn how to build decks, and just be a bigger part of your community. So that's what Vampire Wednesdays are going to be all about. And then as soon as you do know how to play and you're really comfortable, we're also going to do lots of interactive stuff here. So as you're playing, we're going to be throwing stuff out at you during Vampire Wednesdays while we're playing in our own studio. And it should be just really fun and make it feel like we're all part of this big global community. That's really our goal. So yeah, hopefully that answers your questions. Well, Terry, I know we're a little bit over time. I know it's late for you in pretend San Francisco. So
I have a party to go to. They're waiting for me inside my little. You seem so convinced.
I see that. You're probably playing Ventru. I bet that's what's happening over there. So thank you so much.
Nice things. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for joining us. And please, anybody, if you have more questions for her, ask her in the comments. We're there all the time, and Terry will definitely catch up with you. So thanks, Terry. Have fun. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Awesome. So we have lots going on with organized play, and it'll be easier for us to explain more of it as we get a little closer to launch, but we just wanted to give you a little bit of a taste of what's coming up. But Matt, you have been very, very patiently waiting here. So we're going to be chatting about some schemes and conspiracies tonight. So do you want to just give us, for anybody who's just kind of jumping into the campaign, just learning about this, what are schemes and conspiracies?
Sure. So schemes and conspiracies are a couple of the more interactive cards that people are going to be playing with. And I know we've had a couple questions and they're like, oh, are you going to do an article about them? And we sort of did a little bit of talking about them when we talked about the Ventru and the Malkavian, and maybe the Toreador. The Toreador are actually probably a little bit better at doing schemes. I guess they're rivals with the Ventru, Toreador versus Ventru for who's better at schemes. You'll have to decide for yourself once you see all the cards all splayed out. But yeah, we wanted to. It's something. It's hard to write it out, in an article to explain them because it just sounds all procedural. But really, it's a chance to interact with the other players. So with schemes, you're going to use influence. And are we set up to talk about schemes first? I think we are. Maybe we want to see. Do we have an
Yeah,
example? There we go.
we have greed
Greed.
up
All right.
there. Yeah.
So you'll notice one little change. So people were wondering if we were going to make any changes to cards. We did have people during the Gen Con Tabletopia demos ask about, is there anything we can put on the cards to make the schemes a little bit easier to understand? So we put influence conflict there. So right away, okay, I'm going to be using my influence. Now, every player is going to have at least one influence, theoretically, if your leader is not in torpor or been burned out of the game, because your leader token gives your leader one influence. So right there, you're going to be able to participate in any influence conflict that is happening, whether you play it or someone else plays it. All right. This is an action it's interactive, so everyone's going to be able to get involved if they want. Okay. With a card like Greed, you'll notice, first of all, that this is a Ventru only card. So only you've got to have at least one Ventru in your coterie, meaning active vampires, to be able to play this card. But anybody could play this card. It doesn't have to be a Ventru. As long as you have a Ventru, anybody can exhaust to play this scheme. And you can exhaust wherever you are, whether it's your haven or in the streets. It is an action, so it does require a vampire to perform that action. Okay. Now, this greed is a very selfish. We like to say it's a very selfish scheme. Okay. We'll see other ones that are a little different. This one gives you a chance, if it succeeds, to gain 2 agenda, which is pretty good because you only need 13 to win. Is that all making sense so far? Sarah, are you following along? I know you've played, obviously. I'm just trying to. I'm just saying.
No,
Co-host, so
you're doing great.
yeah, does that sound good? All right.
Yeah, for sure.
So as the active player, you can kind of say, in a case like Greed, you're probably not going to find too many people who want to help you with it. It's possible you could make a deal with somebody and they'll help you with it, but typically you're going to have a lot of influence on the board, and then maybe even supplement that with a little bit of secret influence as well. So playing that influence card is an action one of your vampires does. Then you have the chance to add some other some influence to it by placing the influence spent markers onto vampires you control that have influence. Okay, that's your public influence, and that's what people are seeing. But then you have a chance to do there's a couple other things that you can do secretly. One thing you can do, if you've broken into the Crypt Pack, is there's a couple cards that are called influence modifiers with a little 1 in parentheses after it. You can only play one of these cards, but you place it face down, so people aren't going to know which of the 2 influence modifiers you played. Okay, and it'll give you some amount of influence that'll add to your total. You can also then kind of grab some of your prestige and secretly hold some in your hand over the board. Okay, so again, people don't know how much is in your hand. They don't know how much is on the card. Then each other player can decide if they want to. And then, by the way, then let's say that I had let's say I had 2 influence for some reason. Maybe I had a Primogen title on my leader, so that's worth 2 influence. I would then declare, especially if I'm the greedy player, that's 2 influence for yes, I want this to succeed. Okay, they don't know what's in your hand or what's down. You're not declaring that. All right. So now that you've said 2 for yes, everyone might be lulled into a false sense of security and say, well, maybe I only need to spend 1 from my leader, you know. So somebody might put a token on their leader and say 1 for no, right? And then a third player might say 1 for no, and then the fourth player might be, gee, I don't even have any. My leader, I already spent my influence last time, right? So, you know, and maybe some of those people put in some extra tokens as well, some prestige into their hand. Once everyone has said their piece, you then go, okay, well, it's 2-2 right now. So then everyone's going to reveal the tokens in their hand. Everyone's going to reveal any face down cards they played. Then you just add up the totals. All the yeses are totaled and all the nos are totaled. And whichever side comes out ahead is going, if the yeses are on top, then it resolves. Should I gain 2 agenda? Yes. If it doesn't, if the no's are in the majority, then it fails. Okay. So that is the basics of it. With a card like Greed, you have a chance to basically work against the person who is hang on one second here.
More technical difficulties.
Sorry. had a little crisis here. Okay, so basically, if it succeeds, that's why people have also asked, why is it in the form of a question, right? Like, oh, should I gain? Like, that's not normal for card gaming that we've seen. But what it does is it allows everybody to have an immediate reaction to it. If I'm playing this card as the Ventru and I say, should I gain 2 agenda? Guaranteed everyone at the table is going to have a quick response to that. Like, no way, dude, no. Or, you know, sometimes yes, you never know. So it gets that interaction going a little bit early than if it just said something like, if this succeeds, gain 2 agenda, which then you're like, okay, they're like, okay, how do we know if it succeeds? You're not asking the right question. You want that immediate visceral response first, right? That gets everyone, oh, something's happening, right? Even though it's not my turn, something's happening right now. So that's
it turns it into a yes or no question, and that's what people are deciding. Easy. Do I want to spend my resources to go for yes or for no on this?
Right. And we just wanted to, you know, we don't want to have to worry about talking about resolution of certain things and all that, you know, or like, so that's the basics. So that is one example of a scheme. And hopefully my long narrative kind of, but was
I mean, it's really pretty simple, right? So if I present, I ask everyone, should I gain 2 influence? Everyone decides. I have a couple different options.
2 agenda, actually, in this case, yeah.
2 agenda, yep.
Right.
So they ask a question, and then they have a few different ways that they can influence that. Just like if you were in politics or something, and you're a big fancy politician, you have a certain amount of influence that you can exert over the people in your circle. And if you use that influence up and you call in all your favors, that's all you can do. So each one of your vampires has a certain amount of influence, and then you have some prestige you can spend and some cards you can spend, but then that's it. And you just see how that vote goes. And I think that's a really pretty clever way to do it.
And one important thing, so the Ventru playing this could decide, you know, like, wow, this is pretty important that I gain this 2, right? This 2 agenda. Maybe it's going to put me within reach of a victory on my next turn, or maybe even win me the game. You can put, if you're committed to it, you can put a lot of prestige in your hand, because that prestige turns into influence when you reveal it. Okay. But so let's say you put like 5 prestige into your hand, right? You're just like, I'm going big on this one because I really need it. Well, if it doesn't succeed, or I should say, only the winning side loses the prestige that they had secretly bid. So you can risk a little bit more than you might have thought you wanted to, because there's a chance if other people are going way overboard beyond you, you'll get it back, which is just as good. It's a good way to even bluff somebody out of some of their prestige, right? If they think that this is crucial to your strategy, you can pretend to put as much prestige into your hand as you want and go, oh, hang on, these tokens I gotta hide them here in my hand so you guys can't see them. And then you're like holding this big meaty fist out there, and literally there's nothing in there, but everyone thinks you've got like 2 3s in your hand. And oh my God, he's probably spending 6 prestige to push this through, but you might not be. So if all of your opponents spend 2 or 3 prestige to stop you, probably just as good.
I love the contrast of the bluffing and political strategy that makes a lot of sense in the lore here, along with the very mathematical strategic card game that at least I love as a card game player, counting all the numbers, making sure that I have all of the pieces in the right place and that problem solving and puzzly aspect to it. But then you also have this very important social aspect that is what attracts a lot of people, I think, to the world and the lore in general. And I think that's done very well in the game. So that's cool. So we've talked a little bit about greed as a scheme. Do we want to move on to our next card?
Are there any questions, man? So how much was this kind of mechanic influenced by Jihad and Vitesse? Yeah, I mean, well, as we know before, in Jihad, I was a playtester for Jihad, so a little, I mean, a game in the world of Vampire Masquerade just needs some politics. So in Vitesse, it's referendums, but in reality, Vampire Society, the Camarilla, they're not a democracy. So referendum is a very democratic type of word where it seems like everyone gets a vote. In schemes in Rival, it is not the case. You are not entitled to vote unless you have those votes available, right? So.
And I think that that's also part of exerting your influence. I've already spent all my social power to get this thing to work, and then the next person's turn happens and they present another scheme. Well, I don't have my ability to call in all those favors anymore. I need to wait a little bit of time before I get that back again. And so that's where the no influence token comes in.
Yeah, that when you spend the influence on one of your vampires, which resets at the start of each of your turns. So basically that token goes on your vampire to show that you've spent their influence, exerted their influence. That token is not removed until the start of your next turn, when all those no influence tokens are removed from your coterie. So that will get all that influence back online. So it's a resource that you spend and then get back, spend and then get back. So, but while you have spent it, other people might be able to take advantage of the fact that you've spent your influence. And one other minor point, if you have a character who you've got like 7 influence on them, when you put a token on them, you spend all 7 of it. You can't say, I'm just going to spend 5 of it because that's all I need. You spend it all, right? That guy's out there making his case. He's not holding back. He's spending it all. So there's some schools of thought that say put all your influence onto one character and protect them. And then other schools of thought say maybe spread your influence out so you're never so that you have a little bit more incremental plays to make with your influence, right? If you got 3 guys with 2 influence versus 1 with 7, that 3 with 2 is a lot more versatile.
Yeah, certainly. So you mentioned one thing I want to go back to really fast. You mentioned that we've already made some updates to some of these cards, like you can see now on this scheme. But we did have a question about if we're going to be able to show off any of the graphic design changes that we've made. We're just not ready to yet. We would love to say yes, but it's not a super fast process. We have to go through a pretty significant graphic design update to make sure we get everything we want changed. And what I mean by that is that the changes are not necessarily going to be significant. It's still going to look mostly like what we've already presented, but we are tweaking things based on some really good comments that we got from our backers and some really good observations. But mostly it's still going to look pretty much the same with some tweaks that just make it that much better. But it does take a lot of...
Things are going to pop a little bit better is one thing. And there's a little better variety, we can also say, right? Some of the color issues we're also handling, let's call it that.
Yeah. But even tiny changes, whether they're tiny or huge, it still just takes a lot of time to go through all of the cards, update everything appropriately, work really closely with World of Darkness and their brand team to make sure that they still fit inside their world, with all of the colors that we choose, with all of the symbols. Everything just has to go through a process, and we really appreciate all of their expertise there. And so we want to do that really carefully, and we don't want to present anything to you that doesn't go through that rigorous process. So that's why we haven't shown anything yet. It's also why we haven't gone back to Tabletopia again, because we want to make sure that anything we're showing you has gotten approval, has gone through that process, and we want to just make sure everything looks really good. So thank you for your patience about that, and thank you everyone who commented and had some great ideas. We really do appreciate that, and we really are listening. So I just want to answer your question.
Yeah, let's look at a different scheme before taking another question. We should do it like kind of back and forth a little bit.
Sure, that sounds good.
All right, so this is the scheme called Mercy. So this is one that's actually beneficial theoretically for all players, right? So should each player mend 4 blood on a character in their coterie or in torpor. So this is something where whoever's going to play this has a reason to do it. Maybe they have one of their leader is in torpor. Maybe they have a character in play who's down to 1 blood left and they really want to get them back up to full health because they don't want to lose all the retainers attached to them, things like that. So this is one where you might have a couple people at the table who are willing to go along with you on the scheme. So this is the time when you want to be a little more social, like, hey, Sarah, I see that your leader is down 3 blood, and your rival, the person the person coming after you are the Bruja. You might want to heal up. So I see that you have some influence over there. You think you might be interested, right? So this can happen. This can happen before you even play the card. You could show the card and say, is this of interest to you? Do you like this? Anybody want to do this? So yeah, you can get some allies. You can get some allies going, and you can just talk about it too. You can just like, boy, Sarah, would you be interested in some healing, perhaps? Something like that. So you can make deals before you commit to a card.
Well, and I also really like this because this game is rivals. Like, I have a particular person that I'm gunning for at the table,
right? And
the enemy of my enemy can be my friend. And so sometimes I want to help somebody because they're going after somebody who's coming after me. So there's definitely a lot of political things to think about when setting up a game like this.
Well, right. And this might seem like a card where you might think, well, gosh, everybody's going to want this, right? Well, somebody might have no damage on any of their characters. Somebody might have a little bit of damage on their characters, but they've got their opponent on the ropes and they really don't want him to heal up one of their better guys. So it's a card you should be able to find. You probably want to wait until you have an ally, an obvious ally out there, someone who's hurting, someone who's feeling the pressure. This card is also a good way to kind of rescue somebody from losing the game. If somebody's down to 1 vampire and that vampire is hurting, this could literally keep them in the game, which would then give you time to win the game by other means, right? If somebody gets knocked out, then that's going to end the game. Typically for the typically for the player doing the knocking out, typically that's how it's going to go. It's rare that you win off turn, but it can happen. It's rare. So typically, yeah, you could prevent someone from getting their last vampire knocked out, which might give you time to actually get an agenda victory or knock out your own rival. So things like that.
Very cool.
Then there's also, sometimes you have there are some additional cards that can get you some extra agenda or possibly other small rewards for when a scheme succeeds. So somebody might get all spiteful and vote against your mercy scheme because they see what you're up to and you're like, oh, you've got 2 triggered effects over here that are both going to resolve if this thing succeeds. So forget you. All right. So that is an example of a card that you should be able to find an ally at the table, but it's not always going to happen. So you gotta time it right.
Well, and it's going to cost you influence if you're on the side of the scheme that does succeed. So if I say, yeah, sure, I want this to happen, but I think that there's enough people on the opposite side and I spend some influence, then maybe I don't have that to turn into blood to bring in another vampire. So there's a lot to consider.
You're talking prestige, right? If you played, if you use prestige for it, right? Yeah. Well, if somebody spends their influence to help you on this, they won't have their influence for some other scheme.
Yeah.
If you spend prestige on it, like that's a commitment. That's definitely a commitment. But sometimes the blood is more important than the prestige. The prestige turns into influence when you secretly spend it in your hand, right? So, yeah. Cool. Makes sense.
So
good.
Big things to consider when choosing cards. Cool. We did have another really quick question before we go to the next one. Are you planning to remove the text from the middle of the playmats? We are not planning on removing it, but we are adjusting it so that it's a little bit more reasonable. We did see that comment. We agree with that. We're definitely adjusting. So we will post new images of those when they're ready, which hopefully will be pretty soon because I know that team is working very hard on those and they're looking really good. So there we go. And then do we want to talk about balance of power really quick?
Let's go one and one. Let's look at another let's look at a third type of scheme. This is an unusual scheme. It is a Toreador only, and this one is kind of like a scheme / conspiracy in a way. So this one is when a Toreador, someone with a Toreador in their coterie plays this, they're going to want to choose. They have to choose some other players. Now, well, theoretically, in a 2-player game, you don't have to choose anybody because you yourself, you choose yourself, and that's 50%, right? So you have to choose at least half the players in this game. So it's a balance of power. As you can see by the art, 2 people are feeling good and 2 people are feeling bad right now, right? So that kind of tells you a little bit of the story. So with this, you have the opportunity to, this asks the question, should each chosen player steal 1 prestige from an unchosen player? So you've got a couple options here. In a 2-player game, it's just you versus your rival. You either steal 1 from them or it fails and nothing happens, right? In a 3-player game, to get to 50%, you have to choose 1 other player to be in this with you. Now, this is one of those cards that tends to go after the person in the lead as opposed to your rival all the time, unless you've got your rival like really on the ropes, all right? When someone has got like a lot of prestige or a lot of agenda even, you might go after them just to knock them down. So in a case of a 3-player game, you need 1 person, you will need to pick 1 other person, and then it's a 2 versus 1 influence conflict, all right? One thing, here's a secret, here's a little secret that only people who watch this are gonna hear right away. And that is, it is rarely worth it to spend prestige as secret influence to stop this because you're gonna only lose like 1 or 2 anyway, right? So it's not worth it to stop it usually, unless they have some triggers based on schemes succeeding, and you certainly don't want that. But you certainly wouldn't want to spend that much prestige. When we say spend prestige on schemes, it's usually in the range of 0, 1, 2, 3. You know, only in game-ending situations do you really want to go for those big clumps of prestige. But anyway, the fun part gets to when in 4-player. Now, notice how it says choose at least half the players. So in a 4-player game, you have to choose at least one other person to have a 2v2 influence conflict, but you can choose 2 other players to make it a 3 versus 1 if you really want to stick it to somebody. This is a good thing to do if someone is like has 10 influence left over and they're threatening to bring out another big vampire. You can just knock that down right away. So when it's 3 players against 1, it's it's going to be difficult for the 1 to win this influence conflict, and each of those 3 are going to steal 1 prestige from the sad person who is not part of the gang of 3 there. So in a 4-player game, you can decide to go 2v2 or 3v1, basically. All right, and that's
This
just
seems like
Mhm.
this is a pretty powerful card. Is this in the Crypt pack, which comes in the core set, but is in a separate pack within that core set,
No,
or is this in one of the
it's
pre-built
actually
sets?
in the Toreador deck. Yeah, yeah. All these
Nice.
the 3 cards we've shown are all in the decks. Yeah, so you'll be scheming on day 1 when you crack these open and play your first couple games just with the precons.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That should be
cool.
fun. Cool. So, King of Odonato is asking, is it likely for a lot of players to use schemes or only decks built to utilize heavy influence? Well, it seems like you're already pushing people towards at least exploring these. Do you see people putting a lot of these in their decks once they're able to customize and build their decks using those crypt packs?
There are definitely scheme based decks that is, especially in constructed. You'll be able to you'll be able to build a deck that's kind of based around schemes if you want. One thing I should have mentioned, as it is a scheme, notice that even in a balance of power, when you might choose 1 or 2 other people to be with you, they can vote against you. They don't have to vote with you. It's just most of the time people are greedy and want the prestige for themselves, but if you're doing it to your rival and that would take them down to like 1 or 0 prestige, meaning they're out and you win, they're going to vote against you. So you do want to choose your allies carefully on a balance of power. I should have pointed out. So yeah. So one thing, the maybe a little. Should I give a little spoiler about some of the precon decks a little bit, Sarah?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so the precon decks have a little bit of. So you'll notice that a lot of the conspiracies and titles and schemes are not clan specific. So we do have a couple of those cards in decks that you wouldn't expect them, because we want people to be familiar with them and have a chance to use them if they feel that that is the right decision to make. So you might find a title, a scheme, or a conspiracy in your Brujah deck, even though the Brujah are mostly about beating down. All right. So just to give people a little bit of opportunity to play some utility cards when the time is right, So that's yeah. So if you are going for, and to get back to the question a little bit, if you are using schemes, you're probably going to want to put several influence cards into your deck, like some titles that give influence, some of the influence modifiers, things like that. But you don't always need it, especially if you're playing cards that are not super greedy, like the greed card. If you're going to put greed in your deck, you better back that up. But if you're going to put mercy or balance of power, you might be able to find a friend who will help you out even without having a lot of influence in your deck. So, and you can always
Depends
bluff.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can always bluff
I think
that
it
you
depends
do.
on your
So.
social skill, your
Right.
actual social skill.
Here's another hot tip for the listeners only. Early on in the game, it's pretty fun. If you're a poker player, you might recognize this kind of tactic. But um, early on in the game, somebody, maybe somebody gets a big influence lead, and you're like, oh man, this guy's gonna, there's no way I can beat this guy's influence that he's got on the board even. Well, I'm gonna put 5 prestige in my hand and hold it out to scare him for next time, because he'll think that I was willing to spend 5 prestige to stop him. Okay, but you know that you're not going to win it, so you go, oh, does 5 do it? Oh no, we lost. But then that person is like, wow, that guy was going to 5 prestige to stop me. I better put a couple of prestige into my next scheme, or that guy might do it again with a little bit of help and take out and cause my scheme to be to not resolve. So there's plans within plans within plans, and layers and layers and layers. So yeah, there you go.
I think we need to start a whole section of our show that's just hot tips for Matt.
Right. Well, you see why an article would not be appropriate, because it would have been like 8 pages long. So it's just way easier to talk about it. So it's not that it's a difficult concept. It's just there's so many little subtleties in there. Just wanted to, give everybody a reason to watch these, to get the hot tips now.
It's important. More hot tips in the future for sure. So it doesn't look like we have any current questions going on. So let's actually move on and talk about Destroy the Plans.
Ooh, sweet. All right, let's talk about Conspiracies, the other kind of interactive cards. I think pretty much everyone has seen a conspiracy or two. So again, it's an action. So you're going to use one of your vampires. You're going to exhaust a vampire. Play this card face down and put one of your prestige on it. And by one of your prestige, I mean from your personal supply. That your prestige has a certain color to it, and that is going to be very valuable, because now you can reveal this card immediately if you want, or wait for future turns. You can reveal it to other players. Now, typically you will have someone who you want to use it against, and you will usually not show it to that person, A, because you want them to be a little bit surprised, and B, if they contribute to it, you can't hit them with it when it resolves. So leave it face down. You can slide it across the table and say, hey, have a look at that. Let me know if you want to add 1 prestige to it, right? They could add 1 prestige to it right now, or they could wait until your next turn and do it. It's up to you on how you want to do that. But once a card like Destroy the Plans has 3 prestige on it, and you'll look at the prestige colors on there, and you'll know who you can target with it. So in a case like Destroy the Plans, you're like, target foe who did not contribute discards 3 cards. So now, once you've got the 3 on there, the 3 prestige on there, you don't have to resolve it immediately. You can wait, and sometimes it's correct to wait. Maybe this card, maybe the person you wanted to play it against only has 2 cards in hand, and you're figuring they'll probably spend next turn refilling their hand a little bit, and so then you can play it in the future when it's going to be to full effect. So, and of course, there's cards that, interact with conspiracies as well, which you'll see when you get your decks. So
this is a really good question from Sierra Magic, actually. Are there bluff conspiracies, or ones that hurt you if you don't contribute, or if you do contribute? So you can definitely answer that, but I think I actually know the answer to this one.
Well, I'd love to hear your thought.
Okay, so the way a conspiracy works is that if I'm playing the conspiracy, I invite who I want to contribute to that. And so I'm going to show those people. So there's no bluffing in that part. And the people who are not invited to be part of the conspiracy will not have a chance to contribute and will not be part of it. So there's never going to be a situation where I invite you to look at this conspiracy and then I do something terrible with it to you if you do participate. So that part of it is not bluffing.
Yeah, you do show it to people who you choose to show it to, so they will get to see it. There's something to be said for that level of dastardly, but that is probably not a good idea in a first release core set. We want people to understand how conspiracies work, not how to get screwed by conspiracies right away, right? So there may be room for shenanigans like that in the future, but there won't be a thing of like, ha, you looked at the card, lose 1 blood from from one of your vampires. It's just there's not going to be any tricks like that, So we don't want to trick people.
But there are positive effects if you contribute to a conspiracy as well, potentially, right?
There certainly could be, yeah. There's nothing that as a player who didn't play it, there isn't anything that currently benefits me except that I can't be targeted by it. That's the current. Usually people are like, oh yeah, we definitely need to get the cards out of that guy's got the Prince of the City. He's doing pretty well. We need to get some cards out of his hand so that we can take down the prince, something like that. Usually people know who's in the lead and they want these kind of cards to be used against those players. So, and with a conspiracy, every time it comes around to my turn, if I'm the conspirator, I can again ask people if they want to add prestige to it, and I can also add the prestige of my own to it. But it's a maximum 1 per turn per player. So that's how that goes. By that normal game rule. There are ways to get around that game rule. Of course, it's a card game. There's always ways to get around things.
And so these actually go out onto the table. You show them to who you want to show them to. Everybody has a chance to contribute, but unlike a scheme where it's sort of, and when you choose to, and now schemes just sort of are this event that happened and then it's over. Conspiracies can sit out on the table. It goes around maybe multiple times before it comes back and you're done with that.
Right, and you don't even have to resolve it immediately when it gets the correct number of tokens on it. So you can even, if you want to bluff, here's a bluff. You could add more tokens to it than it needs. It's not, no one's going to lose any sleep over that, by your incredible bluff, but you can get them thinking in other directions. Like, oh, I thought for sure that was a destroy the plans, but he just put another token on it. It must not be, right? So that's a bluff you can do.
Yeah, interesting. Using over-resourcing.
Yeah, the problem with a bluff like that is you're assuming that your opponents are as whip smart as you are, and as we all know, that's just probably not likely. So
you're always the smartest person at the table. Definitely.
Yeah, anyone playing this game is the smartest person at the table. Let's put it that way.
Nice.
Makes total sense.
And then just one other question. I know you wanted to go back and forth, but this is a really relevant one. In a 2-player game, you just always want to contribute once so that you're not burned by them. I think as the person playing the conspiracy in the first place, you would want to contribute to that, right, Matt?
Well, you automatically, when you play it face down, you automatically put one of your own prestige onto it.
You wouldn't be showing your opponent, so they wouldn't have a
two-player game. In a 2-player game, unless your goal was to get your opponent to lose 1 prestige, you're probably not going to show it to them. But if someone does show it to you in a 2-player game, it's probably worth your while to contribute to it. Now, one caveat: if there's no target for the conspiracy, cannot resolve. It will just remain face down for the rest of the game. So you can't just, for instance, there's one that destroys like ongoing cards or things like that. If there's no ongoing card to blow up, can't do it. If everyone has contributed to your destroy the plans, you can't resolve it against anyone, right? So got to have a target to be able to do it. So yes, in a 2-player game, if you are shown a conspiracy, by all means, you're going to want to contribute to it. It'll be worth the 1 prestige. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
I think we had a question about destroy the plans in particular from Scarlet Terror. Basically, who chooses the discard? Yeah, if it doesn't say random, it's owner's choice. So the person being targeted in this case would choose which 3 cards to discard. And of course, note that your hand is filled with library cards and faction deck cards discarded to the same discard pile. So you could choose to discard 2 library cards and 1 vampire if you wanted to. So
Yeah.
If a card is going to be, if it isn't supposed to be a random, it would definitely say random. So it'd say discard 3 random cards. So
that's good. Nice.
good question.
All right. Well, let's talk about our last conspiracy,
Let's look
which
at one
is
more.
Lost Glory.
Lost Glory. This is one that that you're likely to find some help with, especially later in the game. Although I've seen, sometimes a Lost Glory will get put out on turn 1 or 2 and not resolved until turn 7, because you might just get greedy for that, for knocking someone down by 2 agenda, right? Because if there's someone who hasn't contributed and they have 9+ agenda, they'll lose 2 agenda instead of just the 1. So if they have 8 or fewer, they will only lose 1 agenda. Now, you might wonder, gee, why would I ever do it before they had 9 agenda, right? Well, the people who are doing this, the conspiracies most often are the Malkavians, and their agenda card says that whenever they resolve a conspiracy, or the first time they resolve a conspiracy during each of their turns, they're going to gain 1 prestige and 2 agenda. So you can't just save all of your, well, you can, but it's not very agenda efficient to save them all for round 8 of the game when they're going to do maximum punishment. You're probably going to want to resolve one on turn 4, then turn 5, then turn 6, then turn 7 if you can. So that, hopefully that makes sense.
So I see Seer Magic was still asking some questions about a 2-player version of Conspiracy. So let's just walk through that really quick. So
Okay. Sure. I think Seer might have, I think we talked about this earlier. So the person who plays the conspiracy plays it face down and chooses who they would like to show it to. If you don't show it to anybody, then nobody will be able to put any prestige on it. Okay?
Except for yourself.
Except for yourself. You've placed one on there when you played it face down in the first place. But if you don't show it to anybody, they can't contribute to it. And if you're willing to wait a couple turns, you can just fill it yourself. And in the case of Lost Glory, you can get 4 of your tokens onto it, and then you can choose any of your foes to be the target of it. So, yeah, the answer to Seers, there we go, no problem. Yeah, we were probably a little disjointed in the total rules. I get excited about it, but anyway, yeah, you do not have to show it to anybody. If you're gonna show it to people, you don't need to decide when you play it. You don't need to decide immediately who you're going to show it to. You could show it to Sarah, and then Sarah says, "Forget you," and then I say, "Well, okay, Desiree, what do you think? You want, if you reject it, then I can go over to Desiree." But keep in mind, you could, if you've ever been shown the card, you can put a token on it during my turn. Okay. So, for instance, if Desiree added to it, and then next round, when it came around to my turn, Sarah could be, "Ooh, you know what? I think I might want to contribute it to it as well, because it's getting a little scary." So that's one thing.
Nice. So here's a quick question. If people
have looked at the Malkavian Haven, the Madhouse, you'll notice that there are some faster ways to get tokens onto these. So you can sometimes even get, it's hard to do Lost Glory in one turn, but getting to 3 in one turn is not that tough for someone who's dedicated to it.
So here's a question. If I put down a conspiracy and I don't show anyone and I let it go all the way around the table, it comes back to my turn, can I choose to show that to someone?
Yes.
At that point, at any time, I can decide.
You can show it to anybody at any time. They can only put a token on it during the conspirator's turn. So, yep.
And then there was another really good question. Can you put any card down and bluff that it's a conspiracy?
No, you can't. Yeah, basically you would have to put a prestige on it, and then right there you're already making an illegal game move, so you can't actually do that. It would be obvious that it was a bluff because a card that is not a conspiracy would not allow you to put a prestige upon it. There would be no reason to put a face down card and a card face down without a prestige. And because nothing is telling you to put a prestige, somebody would just immediately say, is that a conspiracy? Because if it's not, you need to put that back in your hand. So, right.
Yeah. So that's a really actually good question, because essentially it's asking about tournament rules. And we will have tournament rule documents and explanations for how to deal with situations like that, where someone is just not following the rules of the game, if you're worried about that. So before we actually do real tournaments, we'll have all that documentation on vampirerivals.com. So you can go through there and check that out. And then we'll actually be asking people to do a look through that, read through all the tournament rules, and then have a way that they can certify themselves that they actually know these rules well enough to be in charge of events. So don't worry about that quite yet. All of that will be hammered out and sorted, but that was a really, really relevant and good question.
Yeah, for weird stuff like that, a rule book cannot have like every single little possible thing that could ever happen in a game that has such a wide variety of effects and such. But and at home, we really don't want you to be punishing your kid brother for putting a card down that's illegal anyway, and then trying to fake you out into thinking it's a conspiracy. Like, no one needs to be punished for that. In a tournament where there's like a cool prize on the line, if somebody tries some shenanigans, we're going to want something in the OP rules for that. But for home games, we don't need to get that specific yet.
Yeah, good questions though. Well, Matt, we are getting close to the end of our time, and that was all the cards we had to show off today. But there were a few other things I wanted to tell people about. So for one thing, I am just really, really excited and happy that there are over 2,600 people who have joined our campaign, who are excited about Vampire just like we are, and are going to be playing with us in December. So I really want to encourage people, if you have anyone else who's interested in the campaign, maybe somebody who checked it out at the beginning and hasn't decided yet, please let them know they have 24 hours left, almost exactly, before our campaign is over. And we would love to have them on board, because it's going to be really fun to have more people playing this game. So tell all your friends, post on social media, let everybody know that you're a backer. We put out an update today where you can download social media, profile images, and frames if you want to do that. I think that would be awesome. Show off your love for Vampire. And just be excited with us, because we're ecstatic that we have so many people as part of our campaign, and we hope that community just keeps growing. And so we're going to continue doing these Vampire Wednesdays even after the campaign is over. We still have a lot more to show you. We have updates to give you. We'll be showing you all of our newly, freshly minted card frames when those are ready to show off. We'll be sharing with you even more cards that we haven't even shown yet. There's still a lot to dig into. And then we're going to start actually doing some live plays so people can get another idea after looking through all the videos we already have posted on our site. It gives you even more chance to see the game in action and eventually jump in there and play with us too. So keep playing, keep being excited, tell everybody about it, and we really, really look forward to actually getting this in your hands in December. But if you have more questions between now and when the campaign ends, the comment section is great. After that, it's a little bit easier for us to interact with you on Discord and on our forums. So please go check out vampirerivals.com, because that'll be a great place to continue the conversation even after the Kickstarter's over. And that's where we're going to be making sure that you get all the updates. We'll be emailing specific backers, but we'll also be telling you lots of information in those places too. So please go sign up, and just continue hanging out with us. It's been really fun. So did we have any last quick questions? Looks like we have one quick question. How do they access the special profile badge? That is a good question. I think that's one that you'll want to send us in a direct message so we can get all of your exact info and make sure that you're actually going to get that profile badge, because it won't be automatically tracked for you like it would be for other people if you're not the one directly doing the pledge. We still want you to be able to have it, so no stress. It's just that we'll have to do it in a more manual way. So no worries about it. But all good. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Matt, so much for being here, taking some time out of your day after you've been designing and thinking about Vampire all day long to spend more time thinking about Vampire and chatting with us. It's always very helpful. And next time, possibly for Matt. I think that's important. Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. And everyone who's part of our campaign, celebrate with us as we finish this off the last 24 hours, and we will see you guys next. Have fun.
All right. Bye.